All right, Dolphins, are they in full tank mode? Should they trade future draft capital to go get Kyler Murray or Haskins this year, or wait and chance it in 2020 or 2021?
So, I mean, they're in fairly substantial tank mode, right? You're not signing Ryan Fitzpatrick as your starting quarterback if you have designs on contending this year.
No, I think they are in full tank mode, and this is where a lot of the people in the analytics community perhaps are discussing, are too many teams doing this whole Cleveland Browns tank deal, because it looks like the Bengals might be in that mode, the Dolphins might be in that mode.
The thing is, I don't know.
The entire AFC East is in that mode.
I don't know if any teams are good at doing it. It's like, so let's say Ryan Fitzpatrick is your perfect tank quarterback, right? Because he's going to come in like last year. He's going to play 2 games at 90, and then he's going to implode in spectacular fashion.
Yeah. And
the next 8 games will be disastrous.
Well, if he has nobody to throw to, he won't even have those good games. He'll be just bad.
You might get a couple of games of high peak Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then everything else will be a train wreck. And by the end of the season, that'll shake out to a 2-14 record, and you'll probably have the number 1 pick in the draft. But what happens is teams get 8 games into the skid, and they're like, we've got to do something. We make a change at quarterback. They put in a guy who's better, and now they win 4 games. It's like, damn it.
They instinctively try to win.
Right.
It's tough to do.
So it's like they have this long overarching tank game plan, but then they choke halfway through the season. It's like, we need to actually start winning some games, otherwise people are getting fired here.
So, well, that's the tough part.
And then they take themselves out of consideration.
So here's the thing. I think if you could go get a Kyler Murray, if you somehow could get Kyler Murray, you take it, and you start the rebuilds there. If you have to tank for next year, if you're going to be a top 5 pick next year, you have a Justin Herbert from Oregon who still has some developing to do. You have Tua Tagovailoa, who I like a lot. I have some questions about his high-level arm strength and all that stuff, if he truly is an elite prospect. If you have to tank for 2 years, that's the gold mine. That's Trevor Lawrence. The 2-year tank program, I don't know if the Bengals are trying to do it. I don't know if the Dolphins are trying to do it. But if there's a team that stays dedicated to getting that number 1 pick in 2021, I feel really good about Trevor Lawrence really being the best QB prospect in a while.
What if he goes backwards in the next year or 2?
I mean, he could. I mean, I
just find it kind of funny that he's nailed on as being the greatest prospect to come along in a decade, and we've seen him for 1 freshman year.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's always risk with that stuff. I mean, Josh Rosen had one of the best true freshman debuts I've ever seen.
Yeah.
He absolutely tore apart Virginia, looked the part of future first-round pick, future number 1 overall pick, and then the next week against an FCS team looked terrible.
Yeah.
So
his freshman year was so unbelievably overblown.
It was, because it was honestly, his debut was spectacular. Right. And then after that was just up and down.
Overall, he was good for a freshman, but not actually good.
Right. And Trevor Lawrence was one of the best quarterbacks in the nation last year as a true freshman.
Then the thing with Rosen is he didn't really get any better from that season. So it's you had a guy who was good for a freshman and then didn't get any better than that for 2 years.
He didn't.
And now he's okay.
So I get it. I understand. I thought Jameis Winston looked the part of future number 1 overall pick straight from the get-go, his redshirt freshman year, and he was. I mean, I think Andrew Luck right from the get-go looked like future number 1 overall pick. I mean, it goes both ways, but I feel pretty good about Trevor Lawrence in 2021 as a prospect. I wouldn't hate a team that truly built their team around let's go get this dude in 2021. It's risky because you have to be the worst team 2 years from now. It's very difficult to do.
You have to be the worst team in 2 years from now and hope that you were right 2 years before you actually needed the evaluation on a guy based essentially off his freshman tape.
Yeah.
Which feels like quite a bad way of strategizing.
So, but doing that is, if you're tanking for next year and you love Justin Herbert and you love Tua, right? You don't want to do this in a situation where there's just one guy you're going to get. I mean, maybe there's one guy, but there's other guys.
This is why, by the way, this whole strategy generally is almost certainly never actually taking place, because nobody has gotten full evaluations on next year's quarterback class right now.
I do think
nobody's done it.
Forward-thinking teams, and now teams have the PFF database, right? Mm-hmm. Almost every team has our college database, and you can at least get a head start knowing who's good.
I mean, they could have done it all the time. They just don't.
I know they could have, but I don't know.
But the point is, so you hear this every year. It's if this guy had just gone back to school, he'd be the number 1 overall pick. Or if he come out last year, he'd have been the number 1 overall pick. And typically the answer is no, he wouldn't have, because at that point they'd have started the evaluation on him then, and they'd have found all the problems they found with him this time. It's just that at the time you were saying that, nobody had done the homework on him. So he was the number 1 overall pick, presumptively. They just don't, you don't do the homework on these guys to that level, to that extent, before you need to. So nobody has done the entirety of the work on the 2020 draft class of quarterbacks. Are you dying?
I'm choking.
Yeah? So anyway, teams just are not doing that level of in-depth homework on the next year's draft class, because they're so far behind this year's draft class just getting to the point where they're able to do it.
I'm better.
Cool.
I think smart teams would be doing it. I don't know what would come of it.
You don't sound that much better?